Shilpa?
Very well. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's a privilege for me to welcome you as a participant to this such an important global project of breaking the silence. This project is mainly aimed to unfold the stories of the menstruation cycle related to the working woman. Um, Very interestingly, the word menstruation has multiple factors related to it. It has mental and physical well being, gender norms, cultural beliefs, religious influences, workplace inclusivity, and gender inequality. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and feel free to add your stories, anecdotes, and also feel free to say no. That if you feel one question you are not comfortable, it's absolutely fine. So my first
Power to you, Dr. Aditya, with this. First of all, it's a beautiful initiative and a much, much needed one. So thank you for having me and
It's
look
my
forward to the questions.
it's my pleasure to have you as a first participant of this project. So you are like starting point. So my first question to you is how do you experience menstruation as a emotionally as well as physically? It might be your personal experience or you can share, more wider also. Thank you.
Sure. So my experience has been a journey, I would say, a journey of self-awareness because the body changes from your 20s to your 30s and so on. So with every cycle, it's been a journey of self-awareness of how I am feeling because that's obviously changing over the time. And from feeling to physical awareness as well of what is happening to you and then how do you emotionally react in those times versus other times. It's a journey of self-awareness because sometimes you behaved in a certain way and it's not only about the menstruation phase but before it and after it as well, and there are shifts of emotional behavior as well as physical, like protecting your physical body or nourishing your physical sense. So I would say self-awareness is the word for me uh, for when it comes to menstruations and treating it as a much needed nourishing time for ourselves to be thinking and giving that nourishment to your mental health as well as your physical health. So it's been a journey. It's filled with, it started with some discomfort, pain, anger sometimes, and it's human, as natural as it can get. But I think becoming aware that this is happening and this is how I can see myself as a third person and being able to articulate was quite a journey, is what I would say, which is quite tough. Sometimes when I've like yelled maybe or lost my temper, I make sure everybody's aware, it's the time when you have to be more careful, like you have to let people know. So I think that's how this journey has been. And yeah, I think that's how I would articulate it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I absolutely agree with you that the awareness is something when we, as you being a young teenager, when we first experience and then we grow with our life, and you absolutely correctly says that it's a journey. Every day we are actually dealing with it and learning more. Yeah, it's very, very, very well said, actually. So I see when we are surrounded by different stakeholders like family, friends, colleagues, right? And this is a time when we expect people to acknowledge that we are going through a phase which is not so easy to handle, right? And so I just would like to know that how do you find people around you are empathetic with this particular phase, and how they deal with how do you deal with the different kind of people, different mindset, if you can just share with me.
Yes, I think that is again starts with like you have to have empathy for yourself first and be aware that I'm going through this, and not as in a guilt way. You have to be acknowledging that is the most natural thing to happen for you and not being sorry about it first of all. Like if that those days are tough, because it's not your problem alone. You're actually taking care of the evolution of mankind every cycle. So it's not my problem alone. So I think the first thing is to making sure that empathy people will not know on their own, and they're not used to, right? So I think making them aware that this is a phase, there are different phases, different timelines, giving clarity to people. Second is making sure that the empathy is, you have to create your ecosystem around you for the people who you deal with in a longer term relation as well. So if it's a long term, like a workplace, your family, or the helpers with you, whoever it is, you have to create that equation with them. But yeah, I would say that this is true. That's like the, a controlled environment where you can. But there are times where there is no empathy sometimes, and you can't help it. For example, you have to go for a media interview, or you have to make sure that you're speaking somewhere, and it's an opportunity that is going to come only once, and they can't reschedule it based on it.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you can't handle it, and you have to prepare mentally. And how can you prepare mentally when you're in so much of discomfort? I think that's also like a muscle memory sometimes of going over it, and then maybe communicating it subtly if required in that situation. But yeah, sometimes you don't get empathy. And like that's the part which is yet to be solved, I would believe. But in long-term relations, I would say that create those boundaries of relations and make that happen. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. I think, like not only in India, like different countries have the huge taboo with the word menstruation, right? We don't feel comfortably to even pronounce this particular word. And from our childhood, we are being taught not to say this thing to anybody. It is something like you have to hold it with you. That also, like, what you are saying, that, being empathetic with yourself is so important. And I think it is very important for us to, teach this thing with our younger generation, like, our daughters, sisters,
Yeah,
friends.
to openly say it out. Like in my house, everybody will know, like, like, yeah, yes, it is this time where you all have to do a little more, and, be more accommodating of a process, So I
Right.
think just being comfortable. But I would acknowledge the privilege of creating that, ecosystem as well, that I'm able to say it out. Not everybody is, because as you said, it's the taboo of, not being able to even say out the word of it. Starts by normalizing it, starts at home to be able to say it out, and then explain it to people of how they can really help in this ecosystem, and make you feel more comfortable about it. Starts from
Agree.
there.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree, absolutely correct. Actually, it starts from the home, and then you get the confident, and then you move to your workplace. My next question is, like, it's a very common, like when I can remember my college days, like, it's like college common room, which is like girls' common room, and like, I've been so now what happened that, many workspace, we are very comfortable with our woman colleague, and we share our difficulties with them. But many workplace, doesn't have that open environment where your men colleagues are also, you can equally share with them your thoughts, your difficulties, right? So I just want to know about your thoughts in this context, or any personal experience, or anything which you have observed during your career.
Yes, I think communicating to male bosses would obviously have been difficult for a lot of people. And I would go back to before starting my company, where I used to work in a finance a company, and finance filled with, again, a lot more male dominated back then. And another thing was, I used to drive 40 kilometers one way and come back. So some days it's 42, I mean, 100 kilometers you've driven, and you're building trading engines, so you have to be before the market starts. And if it's a day where you're going through menstruations and you're in pain, but you really want to be, because you don't want to miss the moment of really contributing to something. So it's quite a uncomfortable situation for sure, because you don't want to miss the opportunity. You genuinely want to be there, first of all. So it's not that you don't want to be. but at the same time, you're going through something that you can't even articulate to not just male bosses, I think even female colleagues sometimes as well, because you don't want to be looked like, or it's not a part of your identity that you're going through. It's a day or 2 or 5 days that you require nourishment for your body. It's not your bad phase. It's not. But that's what that is very hard to articulate, and I think it's taken a journey again, I think, for me as well, to be able to articulate in the right words and give it the right respect, my body that respect as well. So I think from those 20s to now, I can at least articulate and speak it out and create that ecosystem around myself. But back then I could say that very uncomfortable, very painful. You're sitting for 9 hours maybe, and it's not that you don't want to, you want to be there at the same time. So I think that is where I can understand that why there are employment drop-offs in a lot of careers as well, because how many cycles that you have to really go through it, until when that's how you feel sometimes when you're going through that pain. And that is where I had to plan for my future, and that's where now at Myraa we create those policies, we create that comfort places. But I think we all, if we are working in a place as well, create those demands for yourself, because you've earned it, earned your way out up, rather than the drop off. But yeah, I think the conversation starts with being able to articulate. For me also has been a tough journey, so I can pretty much empathize on how hard it is to articulate what you want from your colleagues, what you want from your boss to be when you speak, why and what action do you expect from your colleagues or stakeholders as well. So I think to creating that ask, and rightfully, not as something that you're being extra compensated, rightfully, because it's your right, is quite important. And that is where I think that conversation has to happen.
Thank you. I think it's so interesting, like working and now moving to a leadership position where you have the opportunity to create that ecosystem. Is quite an interesting transition, and you definitely I think it's required. Like when we started and we moved to a leadership position, like you have a lot of opportunity to create that ecosystem, and I'm sure you must have started thinking, or you must be implemented to your company actually, right?
Yes. Yes. The pain was the foundation to create the solution. So you have to go through it to create a solution. So
Absolutely.
yeah, seeing it on the bright side.
Absolutely, pain is the solution. Absolutely. So, I my next question to you is that have you encountered any specific challenges at work during your menstruation cycle, where you wanted to, balance your professional life as well as your well-being? So you answered partly in your previous question where you were saying that you wanted to be there. It's not that you don't want to be, but at the same time, there are professions which is primarily male dominating, and also it required a long hours of working or sitting or engagement. So yeah, so I just wanted to know if any of the experience which you would love to share with me.
Yes, I think one of the most painful is those 14-hour and 20-hour flights. I had created an offsite for my team. So I'm the one who's planned the team, and the whole team is excited to travel to another country and really do some social impact work. And we had planned it, and I planned it in a way that is far away from my menstrual cycle, but with some timeline hormonal changes, it had to happen the day I flew in. And this 14-hour and the second one is 20 hours, both the times is like, it was like a very painful roller coaster where that flight would not end. Like, I think that was one of the experiences that I can say I didn't have any control, but make sure that I get through and then still be alive and happy, because my whole team is so excited. So I can't look grumpy. So I think that was one of the most painful situation where you want to be happy, as I said earlier, but then you're human to feel that pain. And what do you do for then? You pack yourself with some comforts of heating pads or something that could just give you comfort during the flight. and just survive. But you have those days which you can't avoid or whatsoever. So yeah, and then you laugh it off like we do. So thank you for giving this platform to think back and get
Just say
over
I
it
did it
because
actually.
yeah, it's very relatable. So
And
yeah.
I think, when you are in a leadership position, I think it's more challenging, like, more demanding. Like people look after you and they wanted to see you, what you are doing, and how you are handling.
Yes, yes. At the same time, yeah, you have to be aware, respecting your body. So you communicate also, but you laugh it off and communicate to people that look, this happened, I survived. Now you'll take care of the rest of yours. So
That
I think, yeah,
that's
sometimes giving off that to the team and then everybody is like, empathetic and yeah, works on.
Thank you, thank you. Such a really good answer, actually. uh, My next question is seems silly, but it's very relevant. Like there are certain, sectors which has a certain demand. Like you have to dress up a particular way. You have to be formal. A lot of untold expectation is there. Always call it untold. It is not there in the staff handbook, but you know that yes, you have to conduct like this way. You have to come to your office like this way. You have a client meeting, so you have to be like this way. So, and of course, like these 5 days are like require some kind of relaxation, right? So, just wanted to know your thought or your experience of working as a in companies or in a workplace. How do you deal this situation?
Yes, I think starts with education inside the company, and these education is not for just women, right? It has to happen to men and women both to create an equitable ecosystem, first of all. So it's not just about the 5 days, but it's about what happens like to the parts of the staff, right? Like people who are a part of your team. So I think that education needs to happen for people to understand what is happening. And with that education comes what can be done to make it more comfortable. That is one. And then at the end of the day, it's a team, right? Like when you're thinking of a team together or people working together. So in that space as well, you have to create a fault tolerant system or a fault tolerant ecosystem, which doesn't work on one person not showing up. Ideally, then that means the workplace is doing something wrong. If it is depending on one person, it's a single point of failure if you're creating so much overload on one person. So I think that education has to be there for creating an equitable workplace for menstruation to be a part of understanding of it. And thankfully, to some extent, the pandemic has helped in creating remote work. So I sit with a lot of interviews with my heat bag down and baggy clothes below, but a jacket on the top. So, you have to handle with that. And I think remote is one amazing thing because sometimes it's not needed to dress up and sometimes it's not needed to get up and be there. And that meeting could happen online. Maybe like a lot of people enjoy face to face. That's fine. That you have the entire month to do it if it doesn't happen that very day. But the ability to just get on a call, I mean, and be effective in that call, it's lousiness if they're not being effective on a call as well. So I think that was a good changer. And at the same time, people, if they want, let's meet face to face and work, that means they're not well planned as an organization. So they can't upfront plan their next 30 days as well. That means that's another problem. So I think that I practice with my customers, with stakeholders, team members as well, and anybody, any manager in my team as well, that if you want ad hoc things, that means you're not being a good leader or a manager as well at the same time. So I would say that these things have to get a little more vocal, that if your manager can't practice upfront planning of 30 days as well, and not to the T, but at least creating asynchronous work flows and making sure, then there is something wrong and that has to be reported then in that case. So I think that has to happen, and these educational pieces and then evaluation pieces have to happen. So I'm very critical when this happens with whoever I'm working. So I would say become critical, become aware, and then help them improve their system in this way. So that would be a solution.
Absolutely. I think you are absolutely correct. Like COVID help us to change a lot of things, like a lot of practices, culture. But at the same time, it is also true that, the longer planning and, pre-information of all the meetings is very, very important for the female colleague as well as men colleague also, like, to plan their days.
Exactly.
Yes,
So
right.
that's what, like foreseeing, and women can foresee very well because of this, active month, like menstrual cycles as well. So leverage that as a strength of the team, and then use it for better planning. That's like the best way.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think I'm just moving to my last question. Like, there are countries, those who have introduced the menstruation leave, because right now, what we do, we either feel sick leave or we feel casual leave, but menstruation first 2 days is extremely painful for a large number of women. So, so women are they're scared to being judged, because when I casually speak with many of my colleagues, they are saying, first of all, we don't want to inform the entire world that my cycle is going on, or it's a first day or it's a second day. And at the same time, many of them are also scared that whether it affect the recruitment process of the companies. Like, they probably think that why to recruit a female, because when we know that that person might come and avail these first 2 days of leave. So I wanted to know your thought as a leader, that what do you think about this policy? Because in India, there are 2, 3 states, like Bihar government has already introduced 2 days of paid leave, but it is not widely accepted or widely, implemented, I can say. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I think that's where at the like cost of I think repeating a bit is that asynchronous workplaces actually make a lot of sense, right? Like I think if you're micromanaging day-to-day work, that also is something that is a little wrong, I would say, in certain cases. So create an ecosystem that doesn't require that if you're not there for those 2 days, is like the work doesn't happen, right? So that shouldn't be an ecosystem. So I would just say that creating not just the leave policy, it starts with creating a better ecosystem inside. So if they only accept just the leave policy as is, maybe the colleagues might not even understand why that leave policy is in place, right? So I think first that's what I think, the education, then after education is how can they make a better process around it as well, so that they can adopt it in a way that work can still continue smoothly, and that at the same time the loss of opportunity should not happen for the person who's taking the leave. So there are places where leave policy is there, but they don't want to take the leave policy because they lose out an opportunity sometimes. So I think it's not limited to just a leave policy. That would just be like it would be a solution, but it's not a complete solution. And that is where I think it has to be a full-fledged understanding, and enough time has to be given to understand how a better team can be made. And it has to include these things during team building as well, right? So I think I would say that it has to be a little more fully matured, but it starts with these initiatives and starts with conversations like these. So truly appreciate that these policies are coming out, but they have to grow and mature to full usage of it in an organization. So hope that we all mature, make that ecosystem a little more mature.
Thank you. I think it's true, like policies are there, even not even related to the menstruation leave, but there are many, many more policies are there.
Maternity.
But how we are
Yeah.
going to implement and how people are able to, utilize ethically also is very, very important. And I think
Yeah.
what correctly says, and you use this word several times of ecosystem. I think that is so important that let first people understand, accept, process the information, and then probably, the policy will help them to, move forward.
Exactly. That is the fear. Like, if it's not fully accepted and adopted, then it is just a check mark activity or for the sake of it activity. And it's not going to help to the fullest. So it has to be fully, yeah, like embraced is, I think, a word that I would say, that people have to understand the constructs of it and then how it affects them, male or female as well, for them to come out with how they can make it work as well. So yeah, I think it starts from there. And yeah, better planning as well. So one good thing that happens out of our menstrual time is primal instincts come out. I would say, for me at least, I think my primal instincts come out of how I can be more efficient in my personal life, professional life. That happens to me, of how can I make that per minute value improve when I'm actually on the ground to do my work. So I think if people are efficient and they know what they have to do and when and how, that when and how can be, become more flexible when it's very well defined. So I would like say that it has to be more well defined, more matured. And yeah, it is, it has to, no other option. More and more women leaders are coming out, more and more male leaders are also becoming more aware, and more partners, like in a family, I think, are more vocal to each other as well. So yes, I think very optimistic about a wonderful future ahead. So
Thank you. I think I would like to close this such an important conversation. Like we can keep on talking hour after hour, but I think you have highlighted most of the important points. And what I personally feel that menstruation is not an individual thing. Like it's like more, and neither it is only related to the woman. I think it's more like societal approach, how we understand, and also it's a community thing, because once you are going through this phase, people around you also need to know a lot of things, actually, as you rightly says initially. So yes.
correct, not one person's problem. Like, it's first of all not a problem, and second is it's not one person's as well. So
Absolutely.
it's to grow together. Yes, yes, yeah. So cheers, Dr. Aditya. I think really nice diving into this, and yeah, to bring more awareness. So thank you for the initiative.
Thank you. Thank you for joining and sharing your thoughts. I will be get back to you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.